Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Wake up, Ryan Anderson, Skinny T. We are live. The draft is approaching its conclusion. Ryan Dyrud, Skinny T, LA Football Network. Want to run through all these Rams and Chargers picks. Plus, we'll talk where some UCLA guys went, where some USC guys went. We'll have a full dedicated, 45 minutes to an hour just talking LA football, all combined into one. I know a lot of times we separate things by team. For this one, we'll just do a hodgepodge since it is the end of the draft. But how's it going? I mean, a lot of work goes into the draft, and here we are, almost the end.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just reminiscing about last year. About this time, we were having a sandwich and trying to get out of Dodge. Dodge being Las Vegas, Nevada. Last season, we went to the draft, but different experience when you just hang out at home.
Yeah, exactly. We were at our guy Jake Hefner's Chargers Unleashed host for round one. He has a little annual draft party, so it was fun. Did a live show there. And then yesterday and today, we've just been chilling at the Dyrud residence, watching it. So, a little different. Last year in Vegas, you were poolside for most of day two, I think.
Yep, it sure was. Yeah.
We were out. We did the first round, I remember, and then went out and had like food, just me and you, and had a couple drinks and came back kind of late. And then the next day, waking up and you're like, I'm gonna go by the pool. And you were there, I think, like 8 hours until we started round two.
I had a good time. Yeah. I met some friends.
Yeah.
Everybody's having a good time in Vegas. So yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? So, all right. Well, before we kind of dive into like each pick, and first of all, got to pay the bills, keep the lights on. Show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. As you guys get in here, drop some questions in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts, whether you're a Chargers fan, a Rams fan, a Trojans fan, or Bruins fan, where your guys went, just how you are grading these players. If you feel good, if you feel bad, confident, feel like the team's in a better position moving forward. So we'd love to hear from you guys as well. But just overall, Skinny, what's been just your thought of the draft before we go team by team, player by player? Just overall, has it been a successful draft, you'd say?
Looking
very open-ended question.
It's very open. Looking at our four teams, I feel like UCLA had a good draft. I think that they moved all the guys that they were looking to move, and thinking about the pro teams, though, I think it's a mixed bag. I think it depends on who you ask. I think personally, for me, I've got questions about the Rams and Chargers. I don't think either of them really knocked it out of the park. But they also made some really good picks. So hovering somewhere in that, if we're going to grade it, that B area, I would say.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been some really solid picks. I think the Rams specifically had a really good fifth round, and then started off the sixth round good as well. The Chargers have had some kind of interesting picks that at the surface didn't seem great, but then as you kind of peel back, I think do look better and fit better. So I think overall both teams, these things are always fun to grade because we don't know till 2-3 years down the line. So it's all just us basing it on what people were doing prep work on and whether they're fits. And if they don't like it, they call it a bad pick, when in reality, we have no idea. I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, some picks that were deemed as great picks that, and I'm just talking Chargers and Rams specifically, deemed as great picks that never panned out. Yep. And maybe picks that were deemed as head scratchers that ended up being like really, really solid picks.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that it really comes down to a lot of coaching and the players themselves, who's stepping up, and that's really what it comes down to. All the potential in the world can be wasted if they land with the wrong team, the wrong coach, or just don't bring it to the table once the rubber meets the road in the NFL. Big picture stuff. I'm pretty sure they broke the record for the amount of trades that happened. Trade up and trade back.
Did they?
I believe so. I think earlier on in the sixth round, they were saying they were getting near there, and or in the fifth round even, they were getting near there, and I'm sure they broke that. And 9 Georgia guys drafted. One by the.
They're a good football team.
It seems so.
They're a good football team. One Stenson Bennett that we will talk about here shortly quite a bit as the Rams. He will be the absolute current backup, and then will he be the future? We shall see. We'll get into that. But we are live. We're about 22 picks away from this thing being all wrapped up. I think 759 is the last pick, which the Rams actually own.
Yep, 259.
259. Did I say 359?
You said 7:59.
7:59. Oh God, we'd be here. It's already been a long day. 2:59. So yeah, we're about 22 picks away from the draft being wrapped up. But I think what we should do is let's try to go in order here, since we're bringing in all 4 LA teams in one. And so I don't want to just talk one team for 30 minutes and bore someone else in there and have them leave. But so let's go back to the beginning. And we're just going to go in order kind of and kind of give our grades and talk down. So start at the beginning. Thursday night, Chargers Unleashed guys have talked about it a lot. Jamal and I did a show yesterday about it, but I want to get your perspective and then I'll chime in again. But Quentin Johnston, pick 21 for the Chargers. The board was falling great for the Chargers. And this is a guy they ended up taking that, some people love, some people don't love the pick just based on what was available to you. What did you think of their actual pick? I know when it happened, it was shocking at Jake's house, but now 2 days later, how are you feeling about it?
Well, it's funny because everybody wanted to add some diversity to the wide receiver room for the Chargers. They got 2 great receivers, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And they just kind of went with a guy that is similar to the above, right? And so everybody wanted that speed. They didn't get that. Looking at Quentin Johnston coming into the draft, I wasn't super high on him.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of saw him dropping outside of the first round. There'd been some negative press, some talk about his effort, some talk about what he wanted to bring to the table. And I guess, I wonder if the Chargers did end up meeting with him. They're kind of famous for just kind of pulling the trigger on the guy without
meeting. Yeah.
Yeah. But they saw something. They saw enough. And Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are off the field a lot. So possible replacement is what they're looking for. Is maybe what might be the reasoning there.
Yeah. Oh, and as we're saying this live, the Chargers have selected Max Duggan.
Oh,
QB. So they got a triage of TCU players. We haven't even gotten to their other speed receiver they took later in the draft. But yeah, they ended up now with Max Duggan as a backup quarterback.
And that is the final Chargers pick. And then we have one more Rams pick here to come. But that's
interesting.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, let's just talk on that since it just happened live. I mean, so you obviously Herbert's the guy.
Yep.
You have God, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Easton Stick is the backup.
We're big Stick fans here at the LAFB.
Yeah, at least myself is. And I mean, you want that QB battle, I guess, and to make everyone better, iron sharpens iron, but kind of feels like a wasted pick.
That's what it feels like. Yeah, I'm so curious how Jake and Dan are handling this one as well. But yeah, it's he was not on my radar at all as somebody that I thought he would slip outside of the draft. So
both QBs taken by LA teams are ones that seem to be overgraded, or undergraded, I guess, if you will. But all right, well, we'll talk more Duggan as this progresses and goes by, but then that just happened. So Max Duggan. So any thought that was just happening because they already had 2 TCU receivers, so like they're just going to stick with the TCU pool?
They just got TCU guy thrown to TCU. That works for me, I guess. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but going back to the first TCU guy, Quentin Johnston. Yeah, I think at the time I didn't love it. Jordan Addison being on the board. Love Jordan Addison. They actually have, and it just hit me, they actually have 4 TCU players the Chargers drafted, which is insane, which we'll get to more here.
Johnson, Darius Davis.
Let me find and
Max Duggan.
Okay, no, maybe it is just those 3. Yeah. I don't know what I was saying. Okay. Anyway. But with Jordan Addison being on the board, with Nolan Smith being on the board, with, some of these other defensive guys, Brian Branch being on the board, I thought those may have been a little better value for what they could have added to the roster as it is. Whereas Quentin Johnston at the time, it felt like, as you mentioned, kind of a replacing or a future wide receiver 1 for when either Keenan or Mike is no longer with the Chargers is kind of how it felt. But the more I thought about it, he does have elusive speed. He showed it in some of those big time games, specifically against Michigan on that little dig route that he took to the house for 75 yards. He's got a big catch radius. He's a little better route runner than the likes of a Mike Williams per se. So yeah, I think now that it's been 2 days, I actually do like the pick. So we'll see. We'll see how him and Duggan do in practice.
So is there anybody else in that first round that you would have taken? I mean, I know we talked a lot about tight end. Dalton Kincaid was still on the board. When you got Justin Herbert, loading him up with talent, it's not a bad idea. But you had mentioned some defensive players, and that was obviously the big area of need. So, I mean, yeah, I guess we're Quentin Johnson. That's what they picked.
It's a done deal. He's on the roster. So Bolt fam, I know I think from what I can tell, a little mixed on it. Obviously, let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter. I'm Ryan Dyrud, LAFB, at RL Anderson, LAFB. Hit us up in the comments. But yeah, curious how everyone feels about the Johnston pick. You can also go to LAFBnetwork.com and vote. We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So, all right. So moving now to, I guess the next pick of the draft would be the Rams at pick 36. They did not trade back.
Nope.
They did not take Will Levis.
Nope.
They went in the trenches. Big guy, not Bob Vila, but Steve Avila, also from TCU.
6'4", 332, TCU guard, definitely a guard. I don't even think guard was the biggest area of need on the offensive line. And I think that the areas of need were so much higher, definitely on the defensive side. I've been on the record as cornerback, edge rusher is where I would have gone. But yeah, that's I've really talked myself into him in terms of just a talented guard, but for the Rams specifically, I don't know why. We got Coleman Shelton. You've got a center in Brian Allen. You got last year's draft pick at Logan Bruss.
Yeah.
You've got either Noteboom or Alaric Jackson that could swing inside. So they have a lot of people that can play at that point. So I'm just kind of curious to see what. It's actually similar to the Chargers. It's like, okay, I guess we've got this guy, but why? Why? Like, what does he bring? So that's where I am.
No, I agree with you because I like the player, I like the prospect for sure. Like he'll probably start day one. They definitely fortified the line even more, which obviously was so injured last year. But adding him adds a formidable, bruising big body guard. That can kind of swing inside if needed to as well, and into the center position if needed, if Brian Allen goes down again or they don't want to move Coleman Shelton. But the big need was for sure anything on defense, pretty much, specifically edge or on the back end at corner. And they had so many picks, so obviously we'll get to some of those picks that they did do later on. But with some of the players on the board at 36, I would have preferred an edge guy. But I definitely, it's not like they picked a bad player. It just the position at that time, I thought they could have waited on that. But I mean, hey, if they end up having a tremendous offensive line and Steve Avila is a part of that, then home run. I mean, you can never draft too many offensive linemen.
Who's the guy that's not Tutu Atwell that they didn't draft? I can't.
Oh, Creed Humphrey.
So Creed Humphrey or Tutu Atwell is not Creed Humphrey, and Steve Avila is not BJ Ojulari. So just keep an eye out for those tweets.
yeah, exactly. But it felt almost like this Avila pick was a makeup for that passing on Creed Humphrey.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising. I mean, I thought there's more need at tackle. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, so how do you see the starting? Here we are in April, are about to be May, but right now, how do you see the starting five shaking up with this pick?
All right, so Brian Allen in the middle, Havenstein on the right. I've switched back and forth between Jackson and Noteboom on the left. I feel like you have to put Bruss in there at guard, and you have to put Avila in there at guard as well. So the odd man out might be Noteboom, who has a gigantic contract.
Yeah, or Shelton. Yeah,
If you definitely Shelton, I think that
if you start both rookies.
Yeah.
I could. I mean, this is good though that there's not a set five because it shows they do actually have depth, which is something that a lot of people haven't mentioned or talked about because of how injured they were last year. But I think this absolutely shows that they do have essentially 7 guys that can start. Now, are they the 7 best in the NFL? Probably not, but there's 7 quality players that can start that gives you some flexibility. And so, yeah, I would probably honestly, the way he's played, I know the contract doesn't stipulate this, but I would bump Noteboom out of a starting job right now. I would go Jackson on the left. I'd go Steve Avila left guard, Brian Allen center. And then if Bruss is healthy enough, start at right guard. If not, Coleman Shelton and Havenstein on right.
I have this feeling that Noteboom is going to be on the left side, though. Obviously had some very bad games, but he also actually had some pretty good games. I just remembering that Dallas game where he had a really good game that game. Obviously bad game against 49ers and the Bills.
Yeah.
But really, in terms of the amount of experience he had
bad games against good pass rushers.
the best pass rushers.
The best.
Really.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Sorry, I cut you off, but keep going.
Yeah, he didn't have a ton of experience coming into this year. He had filled in for Whitworth a few times, but he had never been a full-time starter. He had never put in an entire season of games, and then the wheels came off. So,
yeah, seeing some comments in here. Not a lot of love for Noteboom here.
I can absolutely see where you're coming from. Go back and look at some of those games, and bad games and good games. So there's something to work with there. And Alaric Jackson is kind of the question mark because injured really quickly, but had some intriguing snaps.
Yeah,
at left side.
No, definitely. So, and this is kind of the same thing with the Chargers pick of Quentin Johnston is when you analyze it pick by pick, it's not totally fair until when the draft is done and seeing the entirety of it. Because when you say, oh man, they should have done what I was saying, they should have done edge at 36. That was a bigger need. Why'd they go O-line when they could have got that later? But then you see how it played out. They got their O-line. They got some talented edge guys that we'll get to here soon. Developmental, like the Rams love. They love projects.
Yep.
They're like the king DIYers in the NFL. Like if it was like a headquartered for middle-aged wives to do that's what the Rams do. It's like, just give me a project. That's what I want.
Noteboom's contract is the 6th highest cap number this season. Which is incredible.
That is incredible
for a guy that might ride the bench.
Yes. Good old Lester Snead. I mean, they'll move on. They'll probably cut him and take on more dead money.
2024 guys, hang in there.
Yeah. All right. So any final thoughts on Avila? Or?
No, I think that's everything. I think we beat that dead horse.
Yeah. So overall, we really like the player, like the prospect. Didn't love where you take him, but hey, I think it worked out later on. I think the Rams have, in my opinion, actually had a pretty good draft. So
we'll stick with the Rams, right? Going to we'll go back to the second round.
Yes, Chargers at 54.
Yeah, USC Tuli Pelotu. You have the 4-1-1 on this guy. You're a big fan.
Love it. I love this pick. There's the thought process of, man, Nolan Smith was available in the first. They could have gone edge there and then gone receiver here at 2. I get that thought process, but that's all hearsay, hypotheticals. The way it went, they were able to get Tuli at 54. I think this is a phenomenal draft pick for them because in my opinion, he's not a speed edge. He's more similar to like a Morgan Fox, but the Chargers don't have a lot of those on this roster. I mean, they don't have a lot of edge either, but at least they have 2 very good starters in Mack and Bosa. Yes, you need to plan for the future because Bosa's been injured and Khalil Mack's obviously getting older, but you still have 2 starters. Tuli Pelotu can play right now on the defensive line alongside, Morgan Fox on one side, Sebastian Joseph, in the middle, and you could even put Tuli Pelotu on the other inside edge right there. And I just think he's a tactician. Led the Pac-12 in sacks last year. It's a horrible draft word, but has a phenomenal motor. Just never quits on the play. An awesome young kid, huge production. So I'm just thrilled about this pick for the Chargers. I think this was like maybe their best pick of the draft.
I mean, I find it really intriguing just because of where he's landing. I like that he's landing with Staley, a guy who's thinking about defense in a different way, who's trying to figure out how to make the trenches, even the trenches, a positionless place. Where I'm looking at mock draftables. If you haven't checked out that website, they give you all the percentiles for measurables. They don't have a lot on Tuli, but they have him listed as an interior defensive lineman, where he ranks in the 0 percentile for weight.
Yeah, he's light.
Yeah.
He's a tweener for sure.
If you move him out to edge, he's going to be much more suitable for that. But in terms of his weight, but it'll be interesting to see what happens if you move a guy that has that kind of, thinking in terms of basketball. This is like kind of like Draymond Green almost, where it's a small guy, but he's playing the 5, he's playing the center sometimes. But sometimes you move him out to the wing, you move him out to a power forward position, and that's really intriguing just because of what Staley does with defenses.
Yeah, it gives you some versatility there. We'll see. The Chargers have him listed even on their website as edge, and their analysis on it is, we'll slide it nice rotationally with Bosa and Khalil Mack. I personally think he'll be more on the inside. Again, not at the nose, but in that Morgan Fox type role. And here's a guy, he's listed at 266 right now. He probably played more around 285 at SC. Wow. And, being how young he is 6'3", the Polynesian Samoan background. I don't think he's going to have a huge trouble putting on more weight if needed, which I think is smarter just because he's not a pure speed rusher. I mean, he's a tactician, like I mentioned. He's great with his hands. He's elusive in between the tackles, but I'm not seeing him out on the 9 tech just blowing by guys. I just don't think that's a strength.
And depending on where you look, he was mocked to go in the 3rd in some places, and it just shows that the Chargers really believed in him.
Yeah,
going this high.
Totally.
So
I love when we keep LA kids home.
Definitely something to keep an eye out for. Could be the future of the NFL there.
There you go. All right. Next we have, I think the Rams were up next.
Yep, 3rd round.
From 54 to what was the Rams' next pick again?
So
I have it here.
14 in the 3rd.
Chargers were 85 overall.
So
whatever
22nd in the 3rd.
Cool.
Yeah. So Byron Young, Tennessee defensive end, is what he listed here on ESPN. But edge rusher is what everybody else is calling him. Definitely an edge rusher.
Yeah.
Kind of the opposite story than Tui Pelotu, where he's a lot of speed.
Yeah.
A lot of athleticism.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what the Rams' prototypical edge rusher looks like. Lean, long.
Yep. DIY.
Yep, exactly. The question mark with a guy that at this weight is, can he hold up in the run game? Can he set that edge? When a defensive or when an offensive tackle is just barreling down at him, running straight at him, is he just going to get knocked over? Leonard Floyd proved that he could handle that, but not everybody at this weight can do that. But a lot of people are looking at him just with the raw athleticism as somebody that can. He's going to be a starter on the Rams for sure.
Yeah,
but
as a 3rd rounder, he'll probably start day 1 based on who's on the roster currently.
He can work up to that point. Throughout, it's gonna. I imagine it's gonna take all season to see kind of the fruit of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the pick. I mean, this is what I mentioned. Looking after all the picks are done and then analyzing, because we didn't love the going O-line with the first pick, although we like the player because we liked edge. But then you see they're able to get a guy like this who, if it pans out, and that is an if because it is a bit of a project, he is very raw. But his measurables and intangibles are off the chart, and I just hope it pans out. Obviously, this is a earlier pick, but it reminds me of like a Chris Garrett pick a few years ago, who's from he went to Tennessee, so he's not from a small school, but Chris Garrett being from a small school, highly productive, but they're basing it kind of that they could work him in, and it just never really panned out. I think this will be different just because he did play in the SEC, played at Tennessee, didn't really necessarily have the production, but has the intangibles, has the size. And man, if it works out though, Skinny, a Brian Young and a Daniel Hardy edge, both very raw, but both just freak athletes. Like it could end up panning out very well for the Rams if both those guys can get on the field together this year.
And eventually it'll sound like we're repeating ourselves, but the Rams definitely draft for the motor, the red hot fire engine, just constantly going. This guy definitely has that. They drafted Hardy for the same reason, and they've whiffed a couple of times at this position, right? Thinking Terrell Lewis.
Yeah.
Cut Chris Garrett cut.
Obo wasn't cut. He signed somewhere else, but I wouldn't say he ever like truly reached the potential they hoped. He had some decent games.
Epicom kind of went into San Francisco and played much better.
Yeah. So it's definitely been a position that they have struggled drafting as of late.
Yeah.
Or at least
developing
and keeping.
Which is funny because that's what they want to do, apparently.
Yeah.
With all they ended up drafting 3 edge rushers, all very similar kind of in build and that quintessential Rams outside linebacker edge rusher. Hopefully they got something figured out.
Yeah. So overall, let us know, guys, what you guys think. Again, we'll have something up on lfbnetwork.com you can vote on. But overall, you like this pick?
I do. Yeah.
On paper, on right now. I mean,
I love guys that have traits like that, and I love guys that have the motor like that. So yeah, we just got to see him develop. And I've mentioned it before in terms of quarterbacks, but they have packed the coaching staff a bit.
Yes,
with defensive coaches.
Yes, they have.
I keep talking about Jimmy Lake, former head coach, Washington University of Washington. Interesting ad there. He's listed as a assistant head coach. So that's an interesting role that they haven't had in the past, and it's going to lighten the load on everybody, and he's going to bring a lot to the table. And
he's gonna be really involved, I think, in a lot. I love that hire. Phenomenal secondary coach at Washington and defensive coordinator before becoming head coach there, and so I think that was a great addition for the Rams, and he'll be able to have his handprints on a lot of the defense in very different ways in terms of development, in terms of schematically, in terms of game planning. And so we'll see what he can help with in the tutelage of Brian Young. So, all right, jumping back over the Chargers now, pick 85 in the 3rd round. Dayan Henley, linebacker out of Washington State, blazing fast for a backer, 4.5 speed. Not overly big, 6'1", 225, but decent size, and the speed I think is what was the draw for him. And I'll just say this, and I'll throw it over to you. When the name came across, the pick was in, I was not thrilled about it. Just knowing how the linebacker position is undervalued in the Staley system. I wasn't thrilled about it for the sense that they brought in Eric Kendricks last year. They did just decline Kenneth Murray's 5th-year option. So maybe that has some writing on the wall a little bit. But I was like, oh man, using your 3rd pick in the draft on a linebacker in a position that you don't really throw a lot of value at. But upon further inspection and finding and seeing as him being the best cover backer pretty much in the draft, that's where that value comes in, because they don't necessarily have that on the roster, a guy that can flat out just cover from the backer position with that 4.5 speed going side to sideline. Again, one of those other things, as I think about it more, which everyone should do with the draft, I actually like the pick. I think it actually ends up being a fairly good pick. Now we'll see how it's used, because it could be one of those, because of the position he plays, because of the Kendrick signing, because of how they still want to try to develop Kenneth Murray being a 1st-round pick. It could be one of those where he doesn't see the field at all next year. And if that's the case, then it won't look good, obviously, if he doesn't play at all. But if they're able to utilize him in some way on 3rd down packages against a Travis Kelce or whatnot, then it becomes a very interesting pick. So this is a big time one of those wait and see how they actually use him.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about it a little bit more myself. I wanted to compare Henley to Ernest Jones, because as we know, Staley was running the defense there at for the Rams in 2020, and I think he rolled in Troy Reeder was top starting linebacker.
Yeah, when Staley was there.
Yeah.
Which Reeder obviously was signed with the Chargers last year. Yeah, his bring me back to 2020. Because was Reeder the full-time starter?
Well, they got rid of Micah Kiser.
Micah Kiser was, you're right, because Corey Littleton left that offseason, right?
Yep.
So they rolled with Micah Kiser, Troy Reeder, and
somebody else we can't remember.
Oh God, help us in the comments, guys. You remember? I should know this. Well, you keep talking.
I'll look it up. And it's
on the tip of my tongue.
They're obviously not one-to-one comparisons, but there is some similarities just in terms of underweight, but with just tremendous athleticism. Ernest Jones is not super fast, 59th percentile, but 97th percentile broad jump and 93rd percentile vertical jump among inside linebackers, which means he's explosive. Now let me just pop over here to Henley.
It's Kenny Young, who they traded for.
Right.
Kenny Young, that's right. Troy Reader and Kenny Young were your two starting inside backers that year, because Micah Kaiser, I think
he left before that.
He either left or he got
traded.
Like he had some banged up again.
He went to Denver.
Yeah, as did Kenny Young.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah. Later on, but anyway, back to your point.
Henley also explosive. But with the 40-yard dash, especially in his 10-yard split, 85th percentile there, 88th percentile broad jump. So he's, they're moving toward more athletic inside linebackers, and that's a good thing for the Staley defense because, as we know, they often dare teams to run the ball, and when that happens, I say run the ball on them.
Yeah.
And when you find teams that can do that, then that's a big problem. It's a big reason why the Rams have had a really hard time stopping teams like the 49ers.
Exactly.
And I think as Staley's defenses are proliferating, the running back position is going to come back more into prominence. I don't think we're going to see, Emmitt Smith type backs ever again, but there's going to be teams that start running the ball, bigger, heavier guys, more physical running attacks. And so this kind of starts to pad that where, you've got, at least you have somebody back there that's an athlete that can make plays, get out to tackle on those outside zone plays. So, the inside linebacker is kind of the running back position of the defense where it's been devalued over time. And, we're going to see how these guys kind of start to fit in. And, as I know more about the Rams, Ernest Jones has transformed that defense really.
Yeah.
And they ended up bringing in Bobby Wagner, which was just kind of like a tutor for Jones, and I think it's going to continue. So
it's why they felt totally fine releasing Bobby Wagner, because of what they have in Ernest Jones.
100%.
Obviously, what they're doing in terms of roster construction this year was a big decision maker. But if you don't feel as good as you do about Ernest Jones as they do, then that may have not happened. So, but yeah, the Henley pick definitely has a feeling of like, okay, this is something that Staley can really use. Because remember, Kenneth Murray drafted before Staley got there. And it's always kind of felt like they've tried different things with Murray, and he's done some things good, other things he struggled with, and they haven't really truly found his niche. And this is a guy that Staley could draft and say, this is exactly what I want from this position.
And the most comparable thing I'll say about Ernest Jones and Henley is wingspan, arm length, both condors out there.
Condors, they can fly to the football, if you will. Condors, nice. Well done. I didn't know if we get that in, so I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
All right, back to the Rams now. Pick 89 in the third round. Wake Forest defensive lineman Kobe Turner getting some help on the defensive line for Aaron Donald. Your thoughts on this? Because I've seen a lot of people that don't dislike the pick, just thought it came a little early. Thought he was maybe could have been taken later, which is always, it's all hypotheticals. Like, who really knows? And if it's your guy, why wait? But overall, this was definitely a position of need. Definitely need to add depth here after losing Greg Gaines, which he won't play necessarily at the nose, but losing Greg Gaines, losing Ashawn Robinson, among others. There definitely was going to be one or two draft picks allocated for this position, and they did it with their third pick in this draft after trading back a few times. So just your overall thoughts on the second Kobe to join the Rams.
Kobe Durant.
Formerly D. Kobe Durant. Now he's just Kobe Durant.
Yeah. Looking at the depth chart, they added Bobby Brown a couple years ago, Ernest Brown, the other confusing
the Brown
ones.
brothers in the same draft.
Exactly. Yeah. It's obviously Bobby Brown's time to step up to the table. Ernest Brown, we have seen very, very little of. So I think this is kind of a developmental piece, I would imagine. I would have wanted them to add somebody a bit bigger. That's kind of my take on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they needed it. We're both big fans of Coach Henderson, so belief in that side of things. So maybe this is where they still reach out into the veteran free agent market. Because I just don't see the smaller guy replacing A'Shawn Robinson. A'Shawn Robinson's not a tremendous athlete in any way. He just brings just a big body.
Yeah. Oh, Siri thought we were talking to her.
And now that's what they're lacking. Greg Gaines he wasn't a huge guy, but
wide,
yeah,
just not tall.
Yeah, exactly.
Even going back to Michael Brockers was a pretty substantially big person, more athletic than probably what they've had since. Whereas this Kobe Turner pick, I think, gives him some more athleticism, but yeah, not the biggest player for this position. But
I kind of think everybody except for Steve Avila has been undersized. I think that's a common thing in all of their draft reports.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a guy we'll talk about their wide receiver who's not undersized, but
yes, this is true. But yeah, overall, they had to pick it. We'll see. It's one of those kind of, I haven't watched enough film on them to make a true grade or conclusion.
I don't recall the other interior defensive linemen that were still on the board at that point. I liked Zach Pickens a lot, but he got picked well before, as did all of my third round mocks to the Rams. But
yeah, I liked out of Coastal Carolina, Gerard Clark, yeah, which would have been probably a reach at that point. They could have got him probably in the fourth round or so. But that was a guy that I liked, a little bigger in size and stature. But yeah, we'll see how Kobe Turner pays out. I always defer to Coach Henne. I think he's one of the best defensive line coaches in football. So obviously he had some say in this, I'm sure, in this pick. And if this is a guy that he liked and could develop and pair alongside Aaron Donald, and maybe it's one of those where they haven't had the speed of that position in a while, and they wanted to pair some more speed with Aaron Donald. Like, we'll see. So
that's an interesting idea. What does Aaron Donald have to say about these things? Has he been
consulted?
Yeah,
I know most coaches and draft rooms say they never consult the players. Like, what someone even asked, who was it? Was it Rodgers or was it Mahomes? Oh, it was Mahomes. They were asking Andy Reid, one of the receivers you took was in one of Patrick Mahomes' passing camps. Like, was he in your ear saying to take him? And Andy Reid said, no, we don't consult players, essentially. Not those words exactly, but he said, no, that's not why we took him. But you never know. Aaron Donald maybe has a little more power.
I'd like to think he has a little bit.
I think so. All right. Well, before we get to the big talking point pick, we'll go back to the Chargers. Round 4, pick 125 overall. And Chargers fans can rejoice. I don't know if many people wanted 2 receivers necessarily in this draft, but they get their speed guy that everyone has been pounding the table for in Darius Davis, wide receiver out of TCU, the Robin to the Quentin Johnston Batman, if you will, but just a pure burner. I think 4.36, I think was his 40 or somewhere around there. If you find it, you can correct me.
Yeah, 4.36.
4.36. But yeah, they get their burner. They get that guy that Justin Herbert needs to uncork the football 65 yards down the field. And for the first time in quite some time, we'll see the Chargers with 6 or 7 receivers on this roster after last year carrying 5 pretty much every Sunday, even with the injuries. So it's going to be, I think, a very good thing that we see this coaching staff is adapting and changing, which is one of the reasons why I've loved Brandon Staley, because he'll admit when he's made mistakes. He'll admit when he needs to adjust and do different things. And this is a big indicator of them saying, we realized maybe our roster construction last year rehabilitated us a bit in terms of speed at the receiver position, in terms of versatility at the receiver position. Now we're going to go draft 2 guys, and we're going to probably, when it's all said and done, carry 6 or 7 on the roster. So good pick overall in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I'm getting PTSD of Tutu Atwell picks. That this is going to be, he's a bit heavier,
a little more meat on his bones, I think.
A little bit more meat on his bones, yeah. Going back to mock draftables here, but anything in terms of height, weight, size, all under the 5th percentile, all super small.
It's like me and you.
Yep, exactly. Which I'm always going to root for these guys. But you think about it, and you think about, you've got two guys that can win contested catches. They're going downfield. They're going down the sides. You got, some slot there. But you got this guy that he's got 97th percentile, 10-yard split. Have him run a 10-yard route and just dump the ball off to him.
Yeah.
And then we can see what we can get out of, we got to get him space, basically. Chargers have to get him space so that he can move, because, he's not, even against smaller cornerbacks, he's not going to be able to produce a lot of yak, but, it gives them another, just a short yardage kind of dump off, check down kind of idea that can produce first downs, move the chains, just keep the ball going in the right direction. And interesting move for Kellen Moore, I think, is probably what I would say.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, obviously a completely different receiver. But, also return specialist, question mark?
Yeah, I think definitely return specialist as well. That they did not bring back DeAndre Carter last year, who was their return guy, and it seemed like they had finally found one in DeAndre Carter after not really having a true returner for the last couple seasons. And so I would assume Davis will take on that role. And when you just look at this receiver room now, let's look at it in two ways. One, when healthy, you have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer. I mean, those are a very good 1 through 4. Then you have Jalen Guyton, who you brought back, and now you have, Davis, who's a pure burner. You have a very vibrant and versatile receiving room. But and then we'll look at it the second way, if injuries rear their ugly head, like they seem to do this organization and this team all the time, now you have some good depth pieces. You have if Mike Williams does go down, you have a Quentin Johnston that can still kind of play that jump ball, go get it if you need to. If a Keenan Allen goes down, well, Joshua Palmer is very situationally, can play in the slot, is a great route runner. If Jalen Guyton or Davis goes down, well, now you have two speed guys. So it's like you have a little bit more at each type of receiver, whereas last year you were so pigeonholed. If one guy went down, you were basically missing that entire depth of receiving skill set. So I like how they're building this receiving room. We'll see. I think they're done drafting, so no more, but we'll see who they add in the undrafted free agents and what they'll do in camp. But I really like where this receiving room's at for, Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore.
Yeah. And then, thinking about it kind of in terms of early Rams season 2021, when they had Deshaun Jackson, where they'd kind of run like a X slot mesh route with Deshaun Jackson just blazing down the outside, running a nice post route there. That you saw in the few passes that Deshaun Jackson caught that season, those were the kind of the highlights right there.
Yep.
So not quite the size of Deshaun Jackson, but we're as Eleanor Roosevelt says, just hot, nasty, badass speed.
Yes, my girl Eleanor. Well done.
That's a Talladega Nights reference for those of you that didn't get that. My favorite Will Ferrell movie.
Is it?
Yep.
Talladega Nights is your favorite?
Absolutely.
I think Anchorman is mine.
I have no problem with Anchorman.
Yeah, I have no problem with Talladega Nights. Yeah.
Step Brothers, also fantastic.
Step Brothers.
My problem with that is just too many movies in one movie.
It's a lot. It's long. It's great. Old School is a classic.
Yeah.
Trying to think of some of Blades of Glory is great.
Yeah.
Semi-Pro. What's one of the most recent ones that come out? I feel like there's one that recently.
Oh man, I'm gonna look that up too.
Yeah, we can take a quick break.
USC fan here, so that has
Yeah, you're right. He's a big Trojan fan and has some ownership in Angel City, National Women's Soccer League here that we'll be taking my daughter to here soon. Yeah, I'm trying to. He came out with one with Chris Hart, which is kind of funny. What was it called? Get Hard.
Oh yeah, the prison movie.
Yeah, that one was actually pretty funny.
Actor.
Let's see here. He's an executive producer of Succession.
Yeah, Gary Sanchez Productions with his now former, but he still gets credit for it.
Interesting. Well, anyway, Daddy's Home is so good too with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, it's a good one.
The two of them. The second one, Daddy's Home 2 with Mel Gibson, and and I heard they're coming out with a third one, actually, which will be great. Well, while you're looking at that, we can jump. I'll start the dialogue on. I wouldn't call it the most controversial pick, but maybe earlier than some thought, maybe just right. Jumping back to the Rams. heading into today, when we woke up this morning, there was one quarterback on the roster, one Matthew Stafford, no backups on the roster. So we knew there was going to be a quarterback drafted at some point.
Yeah.
It would have been very unwise to go into after the draft with basically 3 undrafted free agent quarterbacks, knowing one of those guys is going to be your backup. You wanted to get a little bit more skill set, a little bit more productivity through college to be the guy behind Matthew Stafford. So they go and they get arguably the most productive college football quarterback we've seen in the last decade in terms of 2 national championships. He's been in the program for a long time. He's like 105 years old. Stetson Bennett, excuse me, University of Georgia quarterback, is now the Rams backup. Your thoughts on the pick in the 4th round?
Yeah. And this was a really quick transition. This was like all the feelings came and went, and I looked into it more, and I felt better, then I felt worse. And, now I'm still somewhere in between. I mean, the overarching question is, what is his I love the fans, all these fans. I represent my fandom a lot differently than other people. No hate, but a little differently. But the overarching question is, what are they looking at for Stetson Bennett's role for the next 2-3 years? Part of the equation might be, it kind of doesn't matter to Les Snead and Sean McVay. Maybe they're moving on before this guy needs a second contract, but definitely at this point, backup quarterback. I think at this point, Matthew Stafford's healthy going into the season. He's feeling really good. So I'm not worried about injuries necessarily. 35 isn't what it used to be for quarterbacks, so it's not like he's Joe Montana at 35. If Joe Montana made it to 35,
yeah.
So a couple of big injuries, but that's just the biggest question I have about it. We can get into more kind of granular details, but do you have any thoughts? Do you have any kind of insight? Because I'm kind of drawing a blank on it in terms of what they would want. If I was Les Snead, if I was running the organization, it'd be a big pay increase for myself. But I would have gone for a veteran quarterback in free agency. Just to have another veteran voice in the room. Just to have somebody that's played some NFL snaps. Somebody that don't have to pay a lot of money, but brings that extra presence. So that, just because that's where my head has been.
Yeah, so for me, I don't dislike the pick. When it first happened, I thought it was early for this particular player, Stetson Bennett. I mean, you can't put all your stock in mock drafts because those are from pundits and people like me and you, and they're not from GMs and scouts. So that doesn't necessarily, just because Stetson Bennett was undrafted in almost all mock drafts doesn't mean the league viewed him that way. I mean, this guy did win 2 national championships at a school that has 11 players drafted this year or whatnot. So there's definitely some value there, but I still thought it was maybe early in the 4th. However, we all saw the run on quarterbacks that went. So had the Rams not taken one there, whether it was him or other, they may have missed out on all the quarterbacks and had to take a Max Duggan in the 6th round or whatever. And so it seems like, from what we're hearing around here, from what we're hearing from people we know in the organization, that Bennett was their guy all along, and not necessarily meaning they think he's going to be the future starter, but there was a guy they wanted in their QB room based on who would be available. We saw them trade back a bunch when they could have potentially taken the likes of a Hendon Hooker or even other quarterbacks. They traded back, and I personally would have liked to see them take DTR just because of my affinity for DTR covering UCLA, the passion he has, the way he plays. But when you look at the Sean McVay offense, when you look at who they have in Matthew Stafford, it makes sense to put a guy behind Stafford that has a very similar playing style. Doesn't quite have the arm talent of Stafford, but is probably a smarter quarterback than Stafford in terms of, I'm not, Stafford's very smart, but just in terms of forcing plays. Stetson Bennett plays very smart, knows his limitations. It helps when you have some of the greatest players on college football around you your entire career, but he took advantage of it and he won 2 titles with it. So the biggest thing we look for in quarterbacks is, there's 2 things, and Jamal and I were talking about this. And again, this isn't saying Stetson Bennett's going to be the future of the LA Rams, but when looking at quarterbacks, one of the big things I look at is, first, who does the quarterback play for? So are they on a smaller or just not a superstar program? And what do they do with that? Did they elevate that non-superstar program to 8 wins, 9 wins, a bowl game? Like, they kind of played above their means. Or were they in a superstar program? And then what do they do with those superstar players? Because you look at some quarterbacks that have everything around them, and if they still don't go to that next level, that's a red flag for me. I'm like, all right, you had 5 blue chip receivers, 3 blue chip running backs. You had an entire 5-star offensive line, and yet you won 8 games and lost the bowl game. But if you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, had all that, had arguably the greatest season in college football history, and won the national title. That's why he's a no-brainer as the first overall pick. Stetson Bennett had all that at Georgia, won 2 titles, doesn't have the same skill set or the intangibles, but a guy that I think can actually have some success probably in the NFL.
Well, you kind of contrast that to Max Duggan, right?
Yeah.
Who had it all.
Yeah.
And they did well.
Yeah.
But they never like got over that hump. So it's like he never propelled that team to the highest level. Where Stetson
close.
Certainly
they played each other.
Oh yeah.
And now they're both in LA, which is great. Playing for the 2 teams.
But Stetson Bennett, I started looking at kind of his rundown, what he's all about, in terms of what you're talking about, in terms of smart quarterback play. 7 interceptions the last 2 seasons.
How many?
7.
7,
each season.
Yeah.
Not bad. Pretty good.
Especially
since the season before 2020 through 6.
Yeah.
And he threw 8 touchdowns that season versus 21 in the next 2 seasons.
A nice jump.
Yeah. Good improvement. But I started to think about him in terms of 2 former Rams quarterbacks, which is, I think he's equal parts Baker Mayfield and John Wolford. So he's a smart guy. He's got a degree in economics. Wolford's got one in finance.
Yep.
He scored a 30 on his ACTs. That puts him in the 93rd percentile, if you're wondering.
Nice. I did. I was wondering.
But he also has a drunken public charge. So
Baker
that's
Mayfield.
a little Baker Mayfield.
Little Baker.
He plays with a chip on his shoulder, Baker Mayfield. But again, smart guy, keeps it under control. Lacks that arm talent. Baker Mayfield has that. John Wolford didn't. So I can understand why the Rams are going after that. And, if he's a combination of those 2 players, he can definitely run the scout team, which is what they need for 2023 and 2024, which is kind of this window that we're looking at.
Yeah.
In reality.
No, exactly. And we'll wrap up so Mr. Irrelevant, the Rams pick is in, the last pick. So once that comes up, we'll briefly talk on that. But 2 last points I think about Bennett is, one, it's a guy that, Georgia obviously has recruited very well since Kirby Smart's been there.
Yeah.
And he still kept that job over the likes of, JT Daniels, other 5-star quarterbacks that came in trying to take it from him. And he kept it because of the competitor he is, the smarts that he had in order to do it. So I think that's a nice kind of way to think about it. And then the Rams just love to employ, stockbrokers as backup quarterbacks. So they got another one.
Yeah. And he is a smart guy who was recruited by the Ivies, but he wanted to play for Georgia. So he stuck around in Georgia, played JUCO football, worked his way back up, got himself back onto the roster, fought his way through all of those guys that you just mentioned and got himself there. And that's just a great trait that you want to see in somebody that wants something really bad. They go out and they make it happen for themselves. Not only 2 national championships, but every game that he played in the playoffs heading into those national championships, MVP of those games.
That's nice. Nice accolade. So,
yeah.
All right, here comes Mr. Irrelevance. We'll pause for a second.
Who are these good-looking people?
Who are these people? Let's see. Let me turn this up a little bit. Nah, she's probably going to talk for a while. CEO of Irrelevant Week.
Huh. All right.
What is that?
I don't know.
Last year's Mr. Relevant, Brock Purdy, obviously took the league by storm.
Yeah.
So let's see if the Rams can get this year's Brock Purdy. Obviously, I don't think it'll be a quarterback. Oh, they're based in Newport. All right. Local.
Cool.
Here we go. Deshaun Johnson, defensive line end tackle from Toledo. There you have it. A 3-tech, 6'3", 285 out of Toledo. Holy Toledo.
All right.
The draft of 2023 Skinny T
It's in the books.
has concluded. We're not done yet with the stream, but the draft is done. Deshaun Johnson, you're Mr. Relevant. And he's a Ram. And they get another edge piece.
Yeah.
And if he's if he can do anything what Brock Purdy did, he'll get some playing time.
Sure.
He'll get some playing time. Okay. Anything else on Bennett, or should we move on?
We got a ways to go on Rams picks.
Yes.
So
yeah, let's keep it moving. We are almost at an hour here. When was the Chargers' next pick?
It was 5th round.
Let's see here.
Yeah, that's our next guy.
156.
Yep, Jordan McFadden.
Okay, so yeah, they go Jordan McFadden, guard at a Clemson. We probably don't have to spend a ton of time on all the rest of these, so we can kind of blaze through them quickly. But I think this is a fine pick for the Chargers. Adding again, your biggest priority is Justin Herbert. They got him 2 weapons on offense in the receivers, a speedster and a possession receiver, and now they add more depth to that offensive line that year in and year out is going to see an injury or two.
Yep.
Obviously, the starting 5 is pretty much set, most likely, with the likes of Slater, Salyer, Corey Linsley, and Johnson, and then Trey Pipkins, they just re-signed. But this just gives you more versatility, gives you an extra body in there to battle. And if anything goes awry, like we saw Jeremy Salyer last year drafted, ended up being starting at left tackle and took the world by storm with how well he played. So you can never have too many offensive linemen. It's a very important position that this does still to this day, for some reason, does not get enough love. And so if you find a guy that comes from a quality program like Clemson, you absolutely should go after him. And the Rams got one as well, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But yeah, I like the pick overall.
Yeah. Moving on to Nick Hampton, the 27th pick, 5th round, 27th pick. Copy and paste what I said, just a little bit more work to do, a little bit more development to do.
App State, baby.
6'2", 236, Appalachian State. Yeah. Traitsy guy, good length, good height, lightweight, but that's what they're looking for. They add another one to the room. We got Hardy, we've got Young, we've got Hampton. Yeah.
They like drafting single digit number edge defensive line guys.
Is that right?
Yeah. Hampton was 9, Kobe Turner was 0, Young, I believe, was 6. So, and these guys can now wear them in the NFL. So we may see a lot of single digits on that Rams defensive line.
Any zeros? Can I get some zeros out of those guys?
Kobe Turner was 0. Let's see a 0.
All right.
Yeah. So you'd have all these single digits and then big old 99.
Yeah. There you go.
The trump card, if you will. But yeah, I like the pick. They need depth at that position. That's the position like they had 3 guys basically going into this draft, and none of those guys were starting caliber guys. Daniel Hardy hopefully can be, but he was injured all last year, so we haven't seen it. So they had to get at least 2 to 3 guys in this draft. They at least just play that position. We'll see if it works out. And so
I kind of wonder if they're going to trade at the trade deadline, similar to what they did with Von Miller, bring in an elite pass rusher that wants out of a situation here or there, if they can find something like that. Leslie said something about that heading in, that all of that stuff is always on the table for them.
Yeah. I mean, if the season goes better, I think, than what a lot of fans are thinking, I think that's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. So, all right, keep it rolling.
Next pick, Warren McClendon, Georgia, ninth Bulldog off the board.
Love this pick.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those, I mean, he's a great player, so I don't want to take anything away from him. But when you get to this part of the draft, there's projects like we just saw with Nick Hampton potentially that have high upside, could bust out, but you're at this point in the draft, 5th, 6th, 7th round, where you can take some flyers on that. And then there's pedigree. And when you look at taking any players from Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, USC, Wisconsin, Iowa, like that are just known for specific positions, and Georgia, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Alabama are known for offensive line. And so regardless, this guy's a good player, but regardless if he's not, sometimes you just draft on pedigree, knowing that they went through a great program, won 2 titles, and we've seen what other Georgia linemen have done in the NFL.
Yeah, not a bad place to add depth. Again, the Rams do love their swing tackles and guards. This guy has played guard as well, so he can move inside. But depth at tackle, great place to add this. You don't draft the helmet, but sometimes you draft the helmet.
Real quick, I want to answer this question, Warren Childs. Did Dye, Voorhees, or Brett or Blackman get drafted? I have not seen. I need to look back. Obviously, the draft's over, but I don't think Dye or Brett Nealon got drafted. But Voorhees went to the Ravens in the 7th round, and Blackman went in the 3rd round to the Minnesota Vikings. So he was drafted high, goes with his, I guess, well, obviously teammate, but with his going against teammate in practice, Jordan Addison, as the Minnesota Trojans are taking form.
Nice.
So yeah,
I didn't make that connection.
Blackman, yeah, hats off. I was super pumped for him. Went a lot higher than I think a lot of people were thinking. Us here at the LFB Network actually had him going in the 3rd or 4th round. So goes to a good spot. But I haven't seen Dye or Nealon, but I will let you know if it pops up. So anyway. Where we at? We still on Rams? Yeah, because we've drafted like 8 picks in a row. So.
Davis Allen, Clemson, tight end.
I like this pick.
I do too. I think he's fantastic right behind Tyler Higbee. Good place to develop there for a while. He's going to get some playing time just because they have 2 guys currently on the roster. We'll see what happens with the rest of free agency. But I just think he's just the through and through just a Rams tight end. I mean, he's not particularly great at everything, but he can block and he can catch the ball. And all he needs to do is pick up that first down. 2nd and 8.
Well, and I would say not to refute you at all, but this is actually it's like finally they draft a true tight end. Like these last few years, they've drafted
absolutely
tweeners that they kind of want to play both, have the the wide receiver speed, but the tight end size, and they kind of want to use them differently. And we've seen Benny Scrow do different things as a tight end and as a fullback. And this guy, Davis Allen, is a true prototypical tight end. He's not going to burn you on speed, but he's big body. He can line up inside. He can line up and catch passes. He's great on flag routes. So it's nice to see them have, outside of Higbee, an actual tight end on the roster.
Absolutely.
So
then we go to wide receiver, BYU, Puka Nakua.
I think Nakua.
Yeah, you're right.
Puka Nakua. That's a fun name to say, though.
Yeah, Puka Nakua.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in Hawaii. Puka Nakua. I probably just sound like I'm a homer at this point, but I love this pick too.
Yeah.
I'll let you speak on it first, but
I like what he brings. I think I was originally thinking Van Jefferson replacement, but then Benny Skoranek replacement is probably more the reality. I don't think Van Jefferson is going to be on the Rams past into a second contract.
No,
28 years old.
Yeah,
next contract would definitely put him past 30. I think he's been great. I like him a lot, but I think he's going to fetch a higher price point. Conversation for next year. But after reading about Puka, we've got him training with Cooper Kupp's former coach. Developing him. So Junior Adams was a wide receivers coach.
Yep.
So that's an interesting connection there.
And it gave me, I told you when he was drafted, it gave me Cooper Kupp vibes. Not that they're the same type of player, not that they're even the same exact size and intangibles, but kind of just an under the radar guy that had pretty decent production in college. His last 2 seasons, I think 950 and 870 yards respectively. 10 touchdowns last year, 5 of those rushing. Ironically enough, so maybe can use him with some versatility out of the backfield, which McVay has shown he likes doing with those jet sweeps. No Bobby Trees anymore. We don't want to get Cooper Kupp injured, so why not have a guy like Puka Nakua who you can have in those jet sweep situations? Which he did 5 times with 5 touchdowns last year. So, I like the pick. I think he adds nice versatility to this room. He's one of those doesn't do one thing great, but does a lot of things really good.
Yeah, I'm curious how he is as a blocker. I haven't read anything about that, but that's always something important. But he's got a bit of an injury history, a bunch of lower body, ankle, hamstring.
Also, one of the
broken
Rams'
foot.
favorite. They love drafting injury-prone guys. Also,
There we go.
for whatever reason,
There we
DIYs and Band-Aids are their two favorite. Do it yourself and Band-Aids.
I did find his GPS time at the Senior Bowl, 18 miles per hour. Not a burner, but it looks like he's got some technical ability there. Which,
there you go. My daughter's ringing the doorbell outside. All right, are we still on the Rams?
Still
right?
on the Rams.
Okay, this might be their best pick of the draft.
Oh wow, that's where we might differ.
Okay, well you start then. I'm guessing it's the size that's an issue for you.
Travarius Hodges Tomlinson, nephew. I wrote it on Twitter wrong as his son, but he's the nephew of LaDainian Tomlinson. But yeah, 5'8", 178 is where he is. Maybe I just get stuck on this, but I just want some bigger guys for the Rams in the defensive backfield because they don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore. Darian Kendrick showed what he can and cannot do on the outside, and manning up against those big bodies proved to be tough for him. So I wanted a little bit of Rochelle, a little bit of Darian Kendrick insurance, somebody that we can, maybe beat up DK with a little bit.
Yeah.
This isn't that guy.
Yeah, no, it's a totally valid point. And obviously this is probably why he fell to the 6th round, because of his size. Because here's a guy, he was the Jim Thorpe Award winner as TCU. I mean, his production was off the charts. Tremendous break on the ball. He's a ball hawk, a good tackler for his size. More of an ankle biter necessarily than someone's going to stand you up because he's 5'8". But I see him as a true kind of slot nickel guy. And when you're in that, you don't necessarily have to be quite as big, because I agree with you. The Rams tend to lean more on the big lengthy corners, which he is not. But I think when you get a guy that's a 3rd round value in the 6th round, and being a guy that's a shorter guy, we both are, and I had to go through that playing and getting looked down upon both figuratively and literally. I think this is a guy that proved himself, and in his introductory interview things basically came out and said, like, I know what I can bring to the table, and you guys got someone that's going to just put his heart out there and do everything he can. And I won the Jim Thorpe Award. I did all this at TCU. We played the national title game. I've been down my whole life for my size, and that's not going to stop me. So I think it's a great pick. So
I love it.
We'll see, because you do make very valid points, and that's literally why he's probably in the 6th round.
Yeah, and I can see the appeal, definitely. Sticking with the Rams.
So, yeah. We're almost back to the Chargers.
O'Shawn Mathis, Nebraska, defensive end, they're calling him, but definitely that edge rusher size. Once again, and like I'm saying, just copy and paste. Just keep going down. Just various rounds, going down. It corresponds, and he's got the traits. He's not as fast or explosive as the other guys. Really flashed, big bursts and bend, and got those things, but he doesn't have a lot of production at Nebraska, which was kind of disappointing for them. But he's got all the right parts, and just another project.
Just another project. Yeah, the DIY 2023 draft continues, but yeah, we'll see. Why not add another body to the room, right?
Yep. So hopping over to the Chargers, finally, you guys get something here.
Yes, Charger fans rejoice.
Boise State defensive tackle Scott Matlock, 6'4", 308. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a depth piece, right? I don't know a ton about Matlock, but it's when you see what's built on the defensive line. We talked a lot about the versatility Brandon Staley likes. We talked a lot about what Tui Pelotu will be able to do there, kind of playing alongside potentially Morgan Fox. And so this is another guy that they can add, just that is going to be a depth piece. They had a lot of injuries last year on the defensive line. Otito Ogbonnia should be back, but he's coming from a pretty gruesome injury, so he might take some time. So it's just, seeing how last year went, it's a premium position that you want some more bodies at, and so he just adds that room.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. So that was a quick trip back to Chargers land. So now we go to Rams trading up for Zach Evans, Ole Miss running.
It's always so funny because the Chargers every year it's like picks 1 through 7, one in each round, and the Rams are like all over the place. But they end up having like 20,000 picks and trades and.
Yeah, and this is the second year in a row that the Rams have traded up to go get their running back that they want. Last year was Kyron Williams. They traded up to go get him. This year it's Zach Evans, 5'11", 202. The most intriguing thing I read about him is he's kind of a boomer bust. You know, he's either going to be something in the NFL or he's not going to make it.
Darrell Henderson 2.0.
Yeah, there we go.
But I like the pick. I knew they were going to take a running back at some point.
Yep.
They do every year.
Mm-hmm.
Their philosophy, for those that haven't caught on yet, is since Todd Gurley, and we'll see, maybe they'll buck this trend with Cam Akers, but it sure didn't seem like that last year, is basically they're not going to extend their running backs. They're going to draft one every year and just keep the cycle going, keep fresh legs, fresh bodies, and just draft a mid-round running back. And they did it again this year. I'm not mad about it.
Good production. His average was 6.5 yards per carry. Kind of going back to Darrell Henderson's, whose was like incredible 8,
9, I think,
something like that. But almost 1,000 yards in his senior season, or I guess in his junior season. But this is a place where, you know, this far deep into the draft, it's a perfect time to grab him.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not going to hurt you at all, right?
Yeah.
You need those bodies there. We saw the injuries again, even last year. We'll see what happened with Cam Akers, but I think having a Zach Evans with Kyron Williams it's a fun 3-headed monster in the backfield, I think.
Sticking with the Rams, Jason Taylor the second, Oklahoma State, 6 feet tall, 204 pounds.
Whoa, you skipped. They are human beings.
You know what's so funny about it is I made a huge flub on Twitter earlier today where I thought, because Evans and Evans were drafted back to back, I was like, wait, I screwed it up. No, I didn't. Okay. Punters are people too. Yeah,
so apparently not the skinny T over here. Apparently not skinny T, but
drafted a punter.
Ethan Evans.
Wingate. Anybody know where Wingate
is? I have no idea. Yeah. Do you?
Nope. Big supporter from the new Rams special teams coordinator. Apparently, I heard a couple of reports. Jordan Rodriguez and somebody else posted about how he was a big fan of this guy. Really liked it, and they did a ton of scouting for punters, traveling all over the place, which is a bit unusual. But apparently, you got to see him punt in person. You got to hear the thud.
Got to see him punt in person.
Yeah.
Huh? Apparently, my daughter wanted to see him punt in person too.
Yeah. What is
Mia?
What is
singing? Apparently.
What is not McCaffrey, the punter on that everybody loves on radio show?
Oh, McAfee.
Yeah. What is he? Piss missiles.
Piss missiles. Does he say that? That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. Wingate. If anyone knows what that is, let us know, or I'll look it up after. And hey, Rams fans, you can feel much better considering your hated rival Niners took a kicker with their first pick of the draft in the 3rd round. So at least you
waited to the right point.
You waited until the 7th round to get your punter that you needed. So
North Carolina, Wingate University is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Lots of good universities in the kind of North Carolina
Bible Belt over there. There you go. Wingate. They got a cool little W helmet. But all right, moving on. Now you can go to Jason Taylor in a second.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Jason Taylor, Oklahoma State safety, 6 feet, 204 pounds.
Nice size.
Yeah. And we've seen the Rams have a lot of success in this area with safeties over the past couple of drafts. John Johnson, I think, went.
He was 4th round, I think. Nick Scott was a 7th rounder. Jordan Fuller, obviously, a 6th rounder. Yep. So they've actually scouted very well this position in the later rounds. So here's a guy out of Oklahoma State that I think we could potentially see some production. We'll probably get some playing time because it's a very young room.
Yeah, you got Fuller hopefully coming back nice and healthy. Quentin
Lake.
There we go.
Yeah, underrated. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Played, I think, just one game, but looked good.
Yeah.
And then Russ Yeast.
Yeah.
Is the other
that's
guy.
about it, right?
I think that's it.
That's it. And Jason Taylor the second.
There you go.
Dude's going to play.
Yeah.
For sure on special teams.
Shall we save quarterback for the last one?
Yeah, we'll end the charge. Let's do the Mr. Irrelevant, which we already kind of touched on, then we can go over to the Chargers final pick and wrap this thing up.
Yeah, they're calling with 3 technique. Small guy, kind of looks like replacement Greg Gaines. he's going to sit behind Bobby Brown, I feel like, and
there you go.
Learn the ropes.
Yeah, Deshaun Johnson, Mr. Irrelevant, Toledo. Yeah, we'll see if we can get any kind of production. If you can get any production on Mr. Irrelevant, you'll take it.
Yeah.
Which the Niners did in spades last year with Brock Purdy. Very different position.
So
the Chargers, final pick, Mr. Max Duggan. 3 TCU Horned Frogs now on the Bolts in this draft.
Definitely a couple head scratchers, Rams and Chargers. This is, I think, the biggest.
Yeah.
They've got Justin Herbert, who's one of the best young quarterbacks. They're going to pay him. I mean, coming up soon, new contract extension. You need a backup quarterback, but
I mean, I'm looking up something real quick.
Oh, sure. 4-year starter, improved along the way.
So I'm trying to remember. I should know this, but Easton Stick, did he just sign a new deal this offseason?
Oh, let me look.
I'm going to over the cap right now. Because I know, obviously, they're not bringing back Chase Daniel.
It's funny with Duggan, I didn't hear anything good, so I didn't spend much time at all looking into it. So I just have this idea that he's just not a good quarterback.
Okay, so Stick will be
free agent
in 2024. So this is his final year.
Oh, thank you.
So maybe the thought is we draft Duggan. Whoever's better this year, we'll keep both of them, and then we'll have a backup for next year, I guess. Because I know that Chargers fans, one of the biggest complaints they had all year was how often or almost every game the Chargers carried 3 quarterbacks on the roster. And there were games where they only had 4 receivers on the roster, and you have Easton Stick and Chase Daniel, and now you let Chase Daniel go, you drafted their quarterback, kind of signaling that they might do 3 quarterbacks on the roster all year long if you're going to use a draft pick on it. So,
well, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, just for comparison sake, I looked at Brock Purdy's contract. His cap number is under $1 million. So if they decide to go Max Duggan in 2024, they're going to save a little bit of money.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be a play on that future, saving a few shekels at the backup position, I'm assuming. I mean, Duggan, to his credit, is a gamer, as you mentioned, improved every single year. Last year, played in the national title game, played with grit. I mean, that game, the Big 12 championship game against Kansas State, he kind of put the team on his back with his legs and his arms. So taking nothing away from him, it's just an interesting pick when, it's the 7th round. You're taking flyers on guys at this point, but you would think you could take a flyer on a guy that could be a special teamer, or push a guy in a position, as opposed to someone's just going to hold a clipboard.
I don't know, a tight end maybe.
Yeah, tight ends. I mean, there was not a lot left at that point. I actually was one of the few that said all along I didn't think they would even, if they did draft a tight end, it would probably be late, but I didn't think they would, just because I think they actually feel pretty good about who they have and what Kellen Moore's done with quote unquote no-name tight ends before. But yeah, that's the one I would have thought you could have taken a flyer on over a 3rd-string quarterback, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's everything. That's all the draft picks.
That is everything. Last few nuggets. Obviously, we mentioned Jordan Addison and Mekhi Blackman go to Minnesota. Andrew Voorhees, even with his basically redshirt year because of his unfortunate injury at the combine, drafted by the Ravens. He will probably be a starter at one point. So super happy for him. Goes to a great spot with Baltimore that develops offensive line very well. Zach Charbonnet, in my opinion, goes to the worst possible spot. He goes to Seattle, where he will be splitting time, if you will, with Kenneth Walker, who was just drafted. I mean, that's a dynamic backfield. Absolutely. So, I mean, great pick by the Seahawks. I just wanted him to go somewhere where he was going to be the bell cow guy. But, who am I missing? John Gaines goes to the Cardinals, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
Arizona Cardinals. They got a good one. I would not be shocked if Gaines starts this year. I mean, 4th round pick. He's just that smart, that versatile, played pretty much everywhere on the offensive line for UCLA. And we know Arizona does not have a very strong offensive line.
Pretty bad. Yeah.
And Antonio Mafi, where did he go? He did get drafted. I'm trying to remember where he went. It'll come to me. While I'm thinking, DTR gets drafted by Cleveland.
Interesting spot for that.
Interesting spot. My hope is that he'll just push Deshaun Watson out. Let's get Deshaun Watson out of here. DTR becomes the new face of Cleveland.
Absolutely. I love that idea for a lot of reasons. Mafi went New England Patriots, which is really good. Yeah.
It's a good
if you look at what they did, I think they
and Solo Man, this must have happened did this just happen? I think Michael Ezike
good.
signed with the Bolts, which I love that fit. He visited the Bolts. We had him actually on our Broom Bible podcast.
We interviewed him at the Rose Bowl, the bowl game.
NFLPA Bowl.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We had him in the Broom Bible, and he said he visited the Chargers. Obviously, he's local from UCLA, so I think that's actually a great pickup for the Chargers. I mean, we just talked about 2 minutes ago. Why not take a flyer on tight end in the 7th? Well, they didn't, but you get Ezike, who basically is a 7th round graded tight end and is a guy that can come in and probably compete to actually get some playing time. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to the Cardinals and Gaines, it's just such a big culture guy too. And they need guys like that. You walk away from an interview with him, meeting him the first time, and he's obviously just a leader and super smart. So love that.
Totally. Love that. So did we miss anyone from UCLA or USC? I think that Travis Dye, I'm sure will get a undrafted free agent contract somewhere. Haven't heard anything yet, just because obviously we've been on here. Brett Nealon, I'm sure will get an undrafted free agent contract somewhere. And I think that is it.
We'll keep you updated.
It's been a long 3 days, so
absolutely.
Warren, do you think if Dye or Brett don't get drafted, they'll go to the XFL? It's a good question. I think they'll get undrafted free agent contracts, which these guys will always probably take that over an XFL contract. And I just saw too, Jake Bobo, we forgot about him. He just signed with the Seahawks. So the Seahawks get another.
That's a really good fit for him.
It's a really good fit.
Lockett.
I really wanted Bobo to go to the Rams. I thought
Jackson Smith in Jigba.
Yeah. Obviously Charbonnet, his running mate, went there. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, Seahawks, unfortunately for Rams fans, I think had a really good draft this year.
I think you're right.
Bobo, how do we forget Bobo? Yeah. I'm actually surprised Bobo did not get drafted.
I'm a bit too. I mean, I kind of understand it in a way, but I think there's just a lot of upside there. Just a big guy. I mean, come on. He's a big target. I thought he would have got drafted, so I'm surprised he gets undrafted. But
any closing remarks?
Is it time for the season to get going yet?
I know. Now we're officially in the 2 months of dead period. Yeah. But don't worry, don't fret. LA Football Network, we still will have plenty of content and coverage for you all off season long. OTAs and mini camp, and then obviously training camp is the big one coming up soon. So keep it right here on the LA Football Network. Skinny T, pleasure as always. Good draft stuff. I'm Ryan Dyrud. All of you guys, thanks for hanging out with us for a little bit. And we will talk to you all very soon. Be well. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Talk to you all next week.